Hey everybody, it's Kyle here again with Gnarly Knives, and today got another review for you. We're going to be discussing this. This is the steel will cutjack. This is the m390 version with the G10 handle scales. We're going to be talking quite a bit about this. This actually is a really nice knife. It's funny, I feel like whenever I do a lot of these reviews, I'm always like, oh, this is a great knife, this is a great knife. Um, because I think a lot of it is just the knives I have. I love all of them, and I really do a lot of research, or at the very least, when I go to a store and buy a knife, I'll usually look at a few of them if there's not one in mind that I'm looking at, and I'll usually get a pretty good feel. Just a couple minutes of playing with it, checking it out, seeing what I think. So I feel like that's probably why I don't think there's really any negative reviews I've really done. I mean, of course, there's some knives I do like more than others that I own, but every single knife I've bought, I still have, for the most part, anyway. I mean, I've given some away, I've bought some as gifts, but the knives that I buy for my collection so far, I haven't purchased any that I'm like, I'm gonna get rid of it or sell it or something. But that being said, this is of course no exception. This knife I bought probably about 6-ish months ago, maybe 5 months ago. I bought it in December. Um, so probably about 5-ish months. I know we're coming up on May. I bought this in early December because I actually bought this when I was going to buy a knife for a friend of mine for his birthday, and I happened to see this, so I got this for myself as well. I was actually going to get him one, but this was the only one that they had, unfortunately. Because actually, I would have bought in a bunch if they had had more. Because this knife, I know usually I'll like throw the price in later, but this is a $150 knife. Where I bought it at my local Army Navy store, they were doing like a clearance sale, so I was able to pick this up for 75 bucks. 75 bucks. I pretty much shit my pants when I saw the price. So I already knew what it was because I have the regular version, the D2 and the FRN handles. So as soon as I saw this, I asked him, I'm like, all right, well, definitely take that. And he's like, oh, do you want to look? I'm like, no, I'll take it. And I asked him, like, do you guys have any more? And he looked. Unfortunately, he didn't have any more, which sucked because if they had two, one of them would have gone to my buddy. If they had three, one would have gone to my buddy. The other ones would have gone to my collection. And I would have probably used the other, or, Christ, if they had four of them or five, I would have probably bought all of them and then just used them for, like, trading and stuff for other knives. But, yeah, it's not the point. But, yes, this is a knife that goes for about 150 bucks. Of course, the standard version you can get for under 50. Usually it's about $45. So is this knife 100 to $110 better than the other version? Yeah, I think it is. Do I love the other version still? Of course I do. But I definitely think this is very much, it is a higher price knife, but I think it's very much a value. I don't think that 150 is a ripoff in any way because of the definite upgrade in materials and just performance overall. But we will get into all of that after we do the specs. Alright, so the specs. Let's do that real quick, get that out of the way. So this knife is... Oh my god, I'm doing it again now. So this knife is 8... I'm coming up with 8 1/4 inches overall length, and we're just under 3.5 inches. It's looking like about 3 7/16 is what I'm coming up with. But for total cutting edge, say we're looking right at 3 1/4. So that is not bad because you do have that nice choil for sharpening as well as finger choil. How nice! Pretty cool. So yes, so it's a 4.5 inch handle, just shy of a. Oh no, it'll be a little more than that. I'm so sorry. It is just under 4 3/4 inch handle, and then about a 3.5 inch blade with a 3 1/4 inch cutting edge. So that is pretty sweet. This knife also, it has G10 handles. It has an M390 blade, and if you hadn't been able to tell from me playing with it on camera, it is on it's on bearings. So it is not on washers, it is on bearings, which is pretty nice. I do love bearing knives. They are very smooth. They're a lot of fun to play with. Oh, just dropped you guys there. Sorry about that. But it is a very, very smooth knife. I carried this more when I first got it, but recently I just have, like, next to my bed, I have like a box with all my pocket knives. I also have a large tote with all my fixed blades. I hate having to move it. That thing that tote with all my fixed blades probably weighs like 70 pounds now, if not more. It might be 80 pounds. I should weigh it one of these days. But I do have a smaller box with all of my pocket knives in it, and this one had wound its way up to the bottom. But I like going through them once in a while, and part of it is just because I'm like, see what's in there. It's something I haven't carried in a while, and I picked this out, and I've been carrying it since. I'm also still carrying my Atlantic Salt 2 that we did the review on recently. I've actually just been carrying both of them. Just around the house. If I'm going out or something, I've been taking this one out. I'm still carrying the Atlantic Salt 2. But anything I've been doing around the house that I've been needing to use a knife for, I've just been using this just because I miss it. And I knew I wanted to do a review on this, so it'll probably go back in the box soon. But it will be carried again soon. I know that for sure. Once the high wears off of the Atlantic Salt 2, which is still going pretty strong. I haven't been coming down from that high with it yet. But I really wanted to do this review, so I wanted to start carrying it again, kind of refamiliarize myself with it. And I did a sharpened it the other day, which was pretty cool. Because I love M390. It is a good steel, and I have a few knives in it now. It's funny. I have 2 knives in M390, and then at least 2 knives in CPM 20CV, which are basically the same steel. There's also CTS 204P, which I do not have yet, which I hope to get something in that steel soon. But they're basically all the same. So the 20CV is made by Crucible, which is an American company, and then Carpenter, which is another American company, makes the 204P, and Bowler, which is a German company, makes this, the M390. They're basically the same steel, just slight variances in the recipe, but virtually same performance, stainlessness, toughness, edge retention, is what I've noticed. I have not been able to differentiate 20CV with the M390 in my, just regular usage, with sharpening, with any of that, which is kind of cool, and it goes along with my having to have multiples of the same thing, with just slight variances, which is probably an issue, but I don't know, I'm seeming to be doing okay with it. I don't have any issues with it. What's also kind of cool too, I thought, is because this is Steel Will is a Chinese company, but these M390 models, because they also do the Modus, they do a version in M390, and I believe some of their fixed blades are made in Italy. So that's kind of cool. I don't know if it really comes up there, but I thought it was kind of cool. Especially for on my mother's side, I'm half Italian. I know I don't look it, but I am, and I just thought that was pretty cool. Something from the homeland, of the many homelands that I hail from. I'm very much a mutt. But this knife is really nice. It, like I said, the performance is very nice with it. It's M390. It has a high saber grind. They, of course, bring it in so it's not like a typical saber grind, so it's a little thinner behind the edge if this was, say, a regular saber grind. I've found, or what I've found that I think is kind of cool, at first I just thought it was, just a nice, a cool look. But this does have a swedge that starts up at the top and then runs all the way down to the tip. Now, what I think is cool about that is when you look at it, the tip, I use the beard kind of comparison there for contrast. The tip does taper and get fairly thin, which can be good and bad. You get a more precise tip, which is nice, but also it makes it a little more delicate. What's cool though is it's definitely a thin tip regardless, but you get the illusion of a thinner tip because of that swedge, which I don't think you'll be able to really pick up on here, but it does run, the swedge runs all the way to the tip, and it does have a little bit of extra, I don't know, girth, I guess, behind the tip. But it does give it a little bit more strength versus if it was just completely tapered as thin as it appears, which is nice. So it gives it a little bit of better strength. It's a good compromise. So you get a little bit better strength, but you also get a little bit better precision with having that thinner tip, which is nice. I do definitely appreciate that. This knife, I've been going back and forth with the handle scales. Not the material. I like G10. It's a good standard material. You'll find it lots of knives. You can find it in much cheaper knives. You can find it in more expensive knives. I really like G10 a lot. It's funny, my girl Sammy hates the color. She cannot stand the color. I don't mind it too much. But one thing I have noticed with it is, you'll probably be able to tell, I don't know if it's just, I think it's just how light the color is, so it does pick up dirt fairly easily. So for some people it might be a little bit of an issue. What I think adds to that, while I do appreciate it is very grippy, you can kind of hear that. It kind of reminds me of those old school agendas, the covers on them. Remember me and the kids would always do that on them. It would just drive the teachers nuts. But the very little tiny checkering, or however you want to put it, it does pick up dirt pretty easily. Now, it does clean off pretty easily. You know, just a paper towel or whatever, a cloth, a rag with a little bit of water, or even, you know, if it's a little bit dirtier, a little bit of soapy water, we'll clean it right up. That's not a problem. But as opposed to, if, say, this was black, or if this was the blue version, I know they did do a blue version for a while. Haven't really seen it up for sale lately. Actually, I don't know if this one really is as much. I mean, of course, probably find stuff on the secondhand market, but it's just something to mention. Also, too, with that texture, while it does add some nice grip, it does kind of beat up the pockets a little bit. The pocket clip on it's pretty tight. I mean, when this is in my pocket, I'm not worried about this knife going anywhere, which is great. I mean, I don't want to jinx myself, but when I was younger, I had a terrible habit. I would lose knives all the time. It was funny. I really could not hold on to a knife for more than a couple of months because I would lose it. You know, usually it would be something would catch the clip, pull it out of my pocket. I don't notice until later. Or I would use it, I would set it down, I'd forget about it. And this was back, you know, when I was younger, where the most expensive knife that I had owned, you know, was like maybe like $30. $30. But, you know, when you're like 12, 13, you know, before you're really working, other than just doing like odd jobs for, you know, relatives and neighbors, you know, $30 is a lot of money for a, you know, a 12-year-old, 10-year-old or whatever. But I would lose all my knives all the time. I used to just buy tons of knives, like cheaper knives, because I would lose them all the time. But if I had this when I was a kid, other than if I set it down and forgot it, because, you know, it doesn't matter how good or strong the pocket clip is if you just set it down. But I've gotten much better about it. I've misplaced knives, but usually it's in the house, and then I find it a couple weeks later. But so far, I've been lucky, and I don't want to jinx myself. Like, I'm genuinely concerned right now that I'm going to lose a knife. Alright, we don't want to talk about that anymore. But it is something to think about. So, depending on what it is you wear, if it's just like, you know, your regular, you know, jeans or shorts, or your jean shorts, or whatever you're wearing, you know, just regular, round the house, round town, not a big deal. You know, probably something you don't have to worry about too much. This is something I could see, like, dress pants beating up pretty quick. I mean, I don't know if, you know, if you're wearing dark dress pants, if, you know, because about this much of the knife's going to poke out, so I don't know if that contrast, like, oh, what's that in his pocket? I mean, then again, until you get the silver clip, but, but this definitely will beat up those pretty quickly. Or if you don't care, then don't even worry about it. But that is one thing I do like, and I did want to mention that this is not going anywhere in the pocket. I mean, of course, if it is too tight, I mean, you can, of course, fix it. Because it's funny, I've actually had to do this in reverse, because I haven't done it with this, but I've done it just with knives in general, especially my work knife. I've probably bent the clip out, and it's just poking out like that more times than I can count. Because usually it'll get caught on something, or a lot of times it's like a paint pail with like the little thin metal bales that go over them. Not the little buckets, like the big 5-gallon ones, not the little... but yeah, I'll walk by, it'll catch it, and it just pops it out. But what you can do, just like I said, it's just the reverse of how to make a pocket clip a little looser. But of course, you have to take the pocket clip off. But what I've noticed, what I'll do is I'll just use like my multi-tool or just any pliers, but just clamp down on it pretty tight. This being, nice, pretty, shiny stainless steel. Maybe put a little cloth if you don't want to scar it, scratch it, or mar the finish on it. But then just use a little bit of strength, and you can just kind of pry it open more or closed more to be able to, if it's too loose or too tight. So that is a very easy way to rectify that issue. Also, too, because I had mentioned that it is on bearings, and that is pretty sweet. I have a few knives on bearings now, and I have to say this probably, with the exception of the Benchmade Tengu that I did a review on a few months ago, which is a great video if you want to check out, whereas If the Knife is My First Potential Safe Queen. But it is something worth checking out, because it's a great knife, another beautiful knife. But with the exception of that, this is probably I probably have maybe 8 or 10 knives that are on bearings. And even compared to a couple of my zero tolerances, which I love zero tolerance knives, do not get me wrong. But this is definitely a little smoother. Not by like significant, I mean, someone who doesn't play with knives or use knives a lot or are very familiar with knives probably wouldn't notice a difference at all. I definitely do. It also could be too that, the blade does have a decent amount of weight to it. The zero tolerances I have are, and I know they're, they're big thing of the bigger knives, but I have their smaller, like the 0450 and the 0460, I believe. So, they're much smaller knives. So, but this, it's just very, and it closes, just drives my girl nuts, because we'll be watching TV or something, you just hear this going on and on. Also, lately, I've been driving her nuts with sharpening, because, I think I said I sharpened this last night or the night before. Watching a show, and then, see, I don't pick up on, I don't notice it, but she does. I just, using my little diamond stone, and just, whatever, I do terrible sound effects. But every now and then I'd look over and she'd just be staring at me, be like, what? But yeah, so don't do that. But it is a very smooth knife. And, after I had sharpened it, I gave it a few drops of oil. I mean, there are tons of different oils out there. I really like the Benchmade Blue Knife Lube. I have been curious to maybe try out some other ones. But I've been very, very happy with Benchmade Blue Lube. I use it for everything. Knife-related wise. But it does do a really good job, and it really smoothed it right out. Because, like I said, this has been sitting for a little while. It's been in the box, in my knife box for a couple of months, and it definitely smoothed it right out. I'm sorry. All right, should I set it down? I just keep playing with it. But also too, so I don't know, I guess it'd probably be counted as specs, but it is a liner lock. So you can see, and it does have pretty good lockup. I mean, to me, this is looking like 50 or even 60% of the way. I mean, the lock bar for the lock is completely like under the blade. Like there's no part protruding one way or the other. So it is total complete lockup with the lock, which is very nice. And it is also, if you haven't been able to tell from me continuing to mess around with it, it is a flipper. And it does a really good job. The detent on it also is pretty decent. I mean, if you like shake it enough times hard enough, there we go, it will pop out. But this isn't like, I have some knives that, it always sucks when you drop them. But I have some knives, on bearings just in general, they have lighter detents. You drop it on the ground and the knife flings open. This is not one I really worry too much about that happening. I mean, generally speaking, even my knives with the weaker detent, I've never had an issue with the knife, like while it's in the pocket, opening up and digging into my hand. I mean, I have cut myself a couple times with knives, but it'll usually be more like with a flipper or something while I'm putting it in my pocket. I'll like open it a little bit and then, well, of course now it's open all the way, but I'll put it in, it'll open it a little bit and I go and reach in and then boom, ouch, I just cut myself, which is more operator error. But this does have very nice detent, which is I think kind of nice and also cool, because I feel like one way a lot of knife companies will be able to kind of cheat a little bit, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all, but I think it just speaks more to the quality of how well this is made, but, with the weaker detent, makes it easier to open, if it's a flipper, thumb studs, whatever, but the fact that this is just very simple and easy to open, but it still has a pretty strong detent, I think that's pretty sweet. So it definitely is a lot of fun to play with, but it's also pretty safe to use. Also, like I've said, I have a little bit, I know, with the choils and stuff like that. The way it kind of is, I really don't mind this choil, because the choil, for the most part, a lot of it is, see, I'm doing the other side of the blade, like at least half, if not more, is behind where the handle starts. So, because for me, I just think of it as like wasted blade space. Because for me, it's like I just want as much blade as possible. Even like, that 1/8 of an inch, that really makes zero difference. It makes a difference to me. It makes me feel better. But while you do have, I'd say probably a little, maybe about 1/4 of an inch, a little less than that, where, the wasted blade space. But it does lend itself nice because you can absolutely fit your finger in here, and it's very nice because having a nice little sharpening choil, it just makes life so much easier. It's something I wish Spyderco would start doing. Benchmade's pretty good about it with having the little sharpening choils, or it's just part of the design with the blades. And everybody knows how much I love Spyderco. I love Spyderco. I am not ashamed to say that I am a Spyderco fanboy. But with Spyderco, but you can see the edge runs right up into, like, there's just, you can just see there's like a little blank spot, and it's like maybe 1.5 millimeters. Try and see, you can see it a little better. It's like maybe 1.5 millimeters, but it doesn't even go right up into the plunge grind, and it's just like, why? And every single Spyderco I have, that's pocket knife. Well, actually, all the Spydercos I own are pocket knives. My girl, Sammy, has a Spyderco kitchen knife, and on that it's not an issue. But I have over probably a dozen or more Spydercos, and every single one is like this. It doesn't make me love the company any less. It's just more of a, come on, why? What I have been thinking about doing to alleviate this issue, because not just Spyderco, other companies do it too. I've been thinking about just getting maybe a little teeny tiny round file. I've seen videos of people doing it. I know it's something a lot of people just do on their knives, and I think I'm going to probably start doing that, just so I can start adding little choils in, because it does make it so much easier to sharpen. Anyway, that's enough about that. And I still love you, Spyderco. Alright, I don't want you to... Oh, jeez. Sorry, guys. I don't want you to take it personally, Spyderco. You know how much I love you. Actually, I don't know if you know how much I love you. I don't know if you know I exist. I just love you guys so much. But I really like that about this, because you do get that nice finger choil with the integrated sharpening choil, which is a sweet deal. It is just buttery smooth. This knife It is now still dead center. You can kind of pick that up. When I got it, it was also dead center. And I've taken this knife apart once, probably about a month after I got it. I took it apart. Didn't need it. It's just something I just like to do. The same with when I sharpen a knife right after I get it. It's just because I want to. But took it apart very easily, went back together very easily, still performs very well, and still dead center. So that is something that's nice, you know. And one thing too, I don't know, this is something that it might be a topic for a whole other video, which I'll probably do at some point, so guys, please let me know if it is a video you would be interested in. But this knife, it took me quite a few sharpenings to really get a nice edge on it. Now, it is now a nice edge, and I do feel a lot better now. Like, now it's at a point where it shaves, of course, but it will whittle hairs. It's not the best whittling hair sharpening I've done, but it will whittle hairs, which is nice. But before, I was having trouble getting it to a point where it would actually even just shave hair. And like I said, this is probably a topic for a whole other video, which I'll probably just do regardless. But I've seen a lot of things, and even another great channel to check out. This is where I first heard about this and started making sense. But Super Steel Steve, his thing is he does a lot of different cut testings. But whenever he gets a knife, before he does any testing, he'll sharpen the knife at least 3 times, because there's this whole theory about burnt edges. And the idea is that, because all the knives at the factory, you know, 99 probably percent of factory knives are not hand sharpened from the factory. When you get into customs, yeah, sure. But with production knives, you know, they're done on belts, by machines, whatever, this or that. But they're done at a very high rate of speed, and there's the potential that sometimes it can just burn the metal. So by sharpening it a few times, you're removing that burnt or, you know, compromised metal, and then when you get into that fresher metal that hasn't been burnt is when it'll start really holding an edge, because of course we all know heat ruins temper when it comes to knife or steel in general, you know, or anything, you know. Tempered glass, I'm sure, can be affected by heat. Maybe, I don't know, don't quote me, but let me know if you know, because I don't. But with steels, heat, a lot of heat, can throw tempers off, can ruin hardnesses, you know, at least on the affected areas. And I've probably sharpened this knife, like when I got it, it was shaving sharp, for the most part. Like it would shave hairs, not whittle, but it would shave some hairs. But then sharpened it, I couldn't get it to shave. It was just, it was like, what the hell? And that's probably why it spent a lot of time in the box. I would pull it out once in a while, be like, I'm getting you sharp this time, would sharpen it, it'd be a little sharper, I'd pull a hair out, you know, where it was more pulling hairs out than shaving them. But then I think I would just get beat down on myself. I'm like, come on, like, you know, do I just suck at sharpening now? What am I doing with my life? Like, you know, just the typical, you know, knife guy woes. But, you know, last night, the night before when I did sharpen it, I finally achieved it. I was super excited. It was worth all the scolds from my fiance, who I love dearly, and I am sorry, baby, if you are watching. I don't think she is. She doesn't watch any of my videos. It's alright, though. I don't cry about it or anything. But I finally achieved that zen of, now this knife is sharp. And it was something that would bother me a lot. But like I said, I probably droll? Is that the right word? I don't know. I've probably gone off topic long enough for it. You see the videos coming up on a half hour. And I know that's a terrible habit of mine. My videos go on so long. But I will at some point, probably not in the immediate future. It's something I want to do a lot of thinking and planning about to make sure I do it right. But I do want to do that video discussing that theory about burnt edges, because I have noticed that with a couple other knives. Not all the time. It's not an every single time thing. You know, because I would say probably 85% of my knives, fixed blade or pocket knife, whatever, the first time I sharpen it, boom, it's how I want it, feel good about myself. But this and a couple other knives I've had those issues with, and like, what's going on? But that's enough about that. Like I said, that will be a topic for a whole other video. But in conclusion, because I know I should probably bring this to a close soon. In conclusion, though, this is a great knife. I think overall, for EDC use, for if you want to use it as a work knife, if you want it just in general, just because it's nice and it's cool and it's made in Italy, I think this is a great option. I do absolutely think for that price, $150, which that's a high price for some people. It's also a low price for some people. To me, this is about the range. Because I have knives that are in the $200+ range. I like to usually stick in the $100 to $200, but usually $150 is around the. I'm like, all right. Unless it's something I really, really want. You know, for example, a few videos back I did on that Benchmade 940, I believe -1, but where it's the carbon fiber handles, the S90V. That was like a $275 knife. That is the most I've ever spent on a knife. And it was funny. I got this for $200 less. But it really would have just been $125 less because I got a screaming deal on it. But yeah, around Christmas, though, that was when it was. Check out those knife stores around Christmas, see what they're doing on deals. But I genuinely believe that this is a very good value for the price. You definitely have the upgrade with the G10 versus the FRN. And 100% upgrade in steel. I mean, D2 I love. It is a good, solid steel. M390 is just sweet. It's on the bearings, so it's just super smooth, like butter action. And it's a pretty knife. It's attractive. I mean, I might see if I can find aftermarket scales for this. I've also seen, now this I know nothing about, so if you know anything about dyeing scales, please let me know in the comments. But that's something that I've heard of people doing. I've seen the odd video about people doing it. But it's something I thought maybe for like shits and giggles, see what'll happen. Maybe if I take it off, I'll try and like dye like a small section on the inside of the handle. So if I really don't like it or if it comes out terrible, just slap it back on. You won't even notice it. And then just every time I take it apart, I'm reminded of my failure. But it's something I'm going to look into, but if you have any suggestions, please send them my way. Also for colors, I was thinking something darker, actually. If I could, I feel like, I don't know, even like a dark red, like a burgundy kind of color. That would be kind of cool, maybe. I don't know. I have a lot of different thoughts, you know. But I think this knife overall, whoever does want it, it will fit multiple categories. I mean, especially too, I know we discussed about, you know, the grip with, because it is a pretty, like, rough texture. Not rough, like, it won't bother your hands at all. It'll just mess up your clothes. But it is very good with grip. I mean, you have jimping up here. You have, I mean, they, like, pretty much all, liner locks will have jimping on them, but it's more jimping on the lock. The backspacer here has more jimping. You have the curves, the flipper tab. Now you have a little finger guard. I mean, this knife isn't going anywhere in the pocket. And if you really are inclined and you worry about it, it does have a lanyard hole, so you can throw that lanyard on there, and that sucker is going nowhere. But also, it's a nice knife to pull out. You know, this is a good example knife. Sometimes when I show people knives of just how smooth knives can be. I mean, like, oh, alright, that's the last time as I do it again. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you guys got a lot out of this video. Hopefully maybe learned a few things. Let me guys know what your thoughts are. If this is a knife that you have, if you've thought about having or owning, buying, what your thoughts are, or if you guys have the Modus version, because that's what I really want, is the Modus. I love the Modus. I mean, I love the cutjack. I do. I love the cutjack. I'm in love with the Modus. The search continues. But let me know what you guys think. Please comment, subscribe, share the video. Share it to all your friends. But thank you so much for coming along and sticking around as we're coming up on the 35th minute of the video. But I love you guys. Remember to keep carving, stay sharp. Peace.